Welcome to another episode of your favorite running podcast. We're Brett, Joe, and Dan, three broskies who've gained a love for running. Join us in our last episode of the year as we look back on milestones we reached that seemed impossible, but now we look back on as no big deal. We'll give you an update of our current PRs and what goals we have set forth for 2024. We'll also talk about some of our experiences from running in various weather conditions and what to look out for. If you're an elite runner looking to enhance your career, please keep looking. But if you're looking to learn from three average runners, you're in the right place. And if all else fails, if you learn nothing, at least you could walk away with a few laughs. We are 0 to 0.
So while we're waiting, fine, since you guys are going to be so stubborn, Joe, why don't you start off and tell us where you're at this month since the last episode?
Since you mean like what my running stuff's doing?
What's your running stuff up to date? What have you been doing this?
Well, with you guys, I did the 15.5 miler, which was surprisingly not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I've been pretty naughty about my running habits in the last little bit. I've only been doing a couple to 3 runs a week, kind of coasting into the end of our downtime before our marathon training kicks off. So I've only done one speed workout still in the last several weeks. I've been getting at least one long run and one or two other easy runs is about all I've been doing. Most of it, almost all of it's been zone 2 stuff, heart rate wise.
So were you pretty nervous for the 15.5 like I was?
Yes, I was nervous for it because it was a big jump from what we've been doing.
That's why I was, same.
Yeah, because we had gone 13.25 and we jumped all the way up to 15.5. And that was a little intimidating. It was. But too, at the pace that we're going, I knew that it wasn't undoable. It was just something we hadn't done yet.
Yeah, something we had to get used to. I don't know about you. You guys did great on that run, though. Like, those last couple miles for me, you saw it. I struggled. I kind of hit a wall. I kind of straggled behind a little bit. But, Brett, what about you? Were you nervous at all for that one? I mean, I'm assuming you weren't with all the miles you've been logging and you kind of wanting to increase.
I was still nervous. I think less nervous than I had been about runs. Just because I knew, like, we were going to take it easy for the most part. It's one of those things I wanted to get one like that in before we started our marathon prep, just so whenever we got to the past half marathon, it wasn't the first time. With the amount of miles we've been logging really in the past couple weeks, it was like, well, probably now is the time to go ahead and get one of that distance. Because as we're getting closer to Christmas and stuff, so it was nice to get one like that under the belt before the plan started. Like I said, just to know that like we can do it and like it wasn't that crazy, and kind of knowing that we're able to get past that halfway point of a marathon, just really helps.
Yeah, I agree. That helped me tremendously. I think that was a great idea on your part to kind of get that under our belt beforehand. I was definitely nervous for it, but I think, like you said, because we're pulling back on our training once we start the plan, I think once we get to that point, it's not going to be nearly as scary as it would be if we hadn't done that run. So I think that was a great idea. What about you, Brett? Like, where are you at on your running since the last one, this last month?
Pretty much the same, backing off just a little bit on mileage, kind of backing off before we start our marathon prep. Got around 26 miles this week. I had been getting up above 30 for several weeks. I think like 6 or 7 weeks in a row I'd been above 30 miles, so back down to like 25, 26. Which made the week a little nicer. Been busy at work and stuff, getting overtime and all that, and busy with life with the baby on the way. So it was just kind of nice to back off just a little, knowing that I'm going to back off a decent amount to start off the marathon plan and hopefully kind of get her reset with the legs and everything. But it's been going well. Been happy with the long runs. Like we were saying with the 15.5 mile run, just going to get a couple more of those in before the baby comes, hopefully, unless it decides or she decides she's coming sooner. But
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll say where I'm at. I'm about the same. Also, if you remember when we talked on the last one, it was towards the end of the month. I was hoping to hit my 100-mile month. I didn't hit that goal. Reason being, I had to make that decision. As you guys we've talked about in the past, we kind of have realized when to make those decisions. Of you don't have to run every run that you think you need to run. Sometimes the best decision, like Coach Bennett says, is not to run. And I was like, I think I got like less than 5 miles away from that, and I could have got it, but we were coming up on that 15.5 mile run, and as I said, I was really nervous for that one. And the way my work schedule and just my schedule in general worked out that week, I would have had to do it like late Thursday or super sore that week, and so I had to make the decision. Okay, I'm not going to hit the 100 miles this month, so that we could do that 15.5 mile run. It was a little bummer, but I was glad that I did it because definitely would have struggled a lot more on that run. But hopefully we get that this month. So we'll get into our topics now. We'll start with Joe. I'll let you I see, Joe, that one of you two, changed my topic.
I was wondering what your topic meant. I was a little confused on Joe's, but I was more confused by yours.
I'm sure you were. Somehow that's something with you guys editing these spreadsheets on on what I type. Joe, my topic is not running while beautiful.
I didn't put it.
Was it you, Brett?
Yep.
It was one of you two. One of you two. I literally just looked and I'm like, are you kidding me? Running while beautiful. All right, Joe, you start us off.
Wait, what was your topic, Dan?
My topic was one of the ones that one of you guys posted, I don't know which one it was working in cold weather. So I was going to put running in cold weather, but I changed it to kind of running in cold / rainy weather after kind of what the run we had yesterday. I figured that'd be a good topic to talk about. Joe, if you want to start off with your topic, though.
Yeah, sure. I picked this week what next year's no big deal is. So we keep saying every time we go out for a new longer run or we're trying to set a new benchmark in mileage for a week or for a month or whatever it is, we keep reflecting back on when we started. Remember, we are now in December of 2023. We collectively started this at the beginning of 2023. So we're still just under a year into this. And the times that we increase our distance or our time or whatever it is, it always gives us a reason to look back and say, do you remember when we were afraid of running a 5K? Do you remember when we were terrified of that first 4 mile run? Do you remember when, and then insert the thing, we were afraid of a 10K, or we thought we would never try a half marathon training plan, or we would never run a half marathon. And now as we get ready to take on those newer runs, like we just said, we took on 15.5 miles. When we went out the other day and ran in the rain 10 miles, it was no big deal. That was the least effort that I've put into preparation the day before a run, the night before a run, probably up to this point. And I'm not saying there weren't consequences to that. I was pretty tired. I was a little bit now malnourished, etc. But there's been several times where my wife will say something to me and I'm like, oh, I'm only running 60 minutes tomorrow, or oh, I'm only running 90 minutes, or oh, I'm only running 8, 9, 10 miles. And that is crazy. So that's kind of the long preamble to my topic. What I wanted to look at is, what do you guys anticipate being next year's? Oh, it's no big deal. Is it going to be anything less than 20 miles? Is it going to be, 120 mile month? Is it going to be a 60 mile week? What do you guys think?
I'll go ahead and start off on this. I'm thinking, and I could be underestimating it, but I think we can get up to a half marathon. I don't know that 20 miles will be there, just because unless our speed gets faster, which I know it will, but by how much is the question. But I feel like it could be like more of an hour mark. Like, oh, if we run 3 hours, like, is that a big deal? Kind of thing. Once we do that a couple times, because just with the half marathon plan, we'll have to do that several times. And or I think I said half marathon, the marathon plan. Whenever we do that, we'll be having several runs that are around that time period, and the marathon itself will be even longer. And then, like, as far as like monthly and weekly mileage, I'm kind of getting close to that with 100-mile months. It's still quite a bit of time it takes, but I've got a 100-mile month in September, October, November, and I'm less than 30 miles from getting it this month too. So it's been a while since I haven't run a 100-mile month. I'm not sure about the 60-mile week stuff, like you said there, because I would have to get considerably faster just for that to work time wise. Because when I ran 35 miles, it took me just around 7 hours of run time for the week. So I'm just not logging miles fast enough, especially with zone 2 work. I'm running even a little slower. I just don't think it'll be that much. Maybe it will be 35 miles is the no big deal, where right now it's been a big deal. But it's definitely crazy how far we've come to where what was a monumental task, or at least seemed like it, is now like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. I mean, this past week, I think my shortest run was today as my little recovery run after our 10-mile run, and it was 2.5 miles. Every other run I had this week was at least 4.
You're putting in close to an hour every day, aren't you? I mean, if not an hour, you're pushing an hour.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I was right around 50 minutes this week, 50, 55, somewhere in there, except for Saturday. Obviously, I didn't put out 10 miles in 50 minutes.
Right.
Not quite damn fast yet.
I'm not that fast. That is one thing I didn't touch on my running. I did do my speed run. That I forgot to mention. That did feel great. That was the first speed run I had since the half. I think I might have one other one, but that felt really good to get the speed work in. I was surprised at how good I felt because, like I said, running these zone 2 stuff kind of got me used to that and doing that all the time and not going as fast. And I just thought, okay, I'm just I took a downturn from where I was, but I felt pretty good with the speed run. I'd say for me with Joe Savic, same thing. I would imagine. I don't know if 20 miles will be no big deal to us, but I would think based off the progression that we've had from like 5K to 10K, 10K to half marathon, and the progression of those things being no big deal. I don't know if you remember, Joe, whenever we hit the 10K and we were like, oh, it's just 5K, no big deal. And we kind of chuckled at the fact of how we never thought that we would just be saying, oh, it's just a 5K. It's just a 5K. And then we got there and I asked you, I said, do you think when we get to the half marathon that we'll be saying the same thing about the 10K? And I mean, you said, yeah, I would. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised because I never would have thought that I would be saying it about a 5K right now. So that's very reasonable to think that we would. So I think it's reasonable that maybe not 20 miles. I mean, it could. Who knows? It depends on how many times we do that, I guess. But
Yeah.
I would say probably 15 to 18. If we keep logging those miles in those long weeks, I would think that by the time we get to that, at least the half marathon, upwards to 10, 15 to 18, maybe we'll be looking at like, it's just not as big of a deal,
See, that's kind of what I thought. I thought it would be somewhere in that sub 20, what we did the other day, to a little bit more. That fear factor, like we've just said, kind of vanishes when you've done it a couple times. That unknown goes away, and it's like, well, I've done this before, so I know I have the ability to survive. So if that's the baseline for doing it, then anything beyond that is no big deal, even if it is strenuous.
Well, and I like that you said it because the thing that we learn from these runs is when we go through hard times or like painful stuff that's going on in the run, cramping up, or we learn to push through those things. So then when we do hit that again, we're like, oh, we've been here. We know we can get through this. And like you said, I think back to when we were about to run our 5K. If you remember, I was talking to a guy on Parker's baseball team, and he was we were like a couple weeks out from our 5K, I think, and he was going to run like a relay or whatever, but where he was going to have to run like 4 5Ks or something like that. And I just remember thinking, ew, gross, man. Like, I got to run 1 5K. I'm working up to run 1 5K, and you're about to run 4 of them. They weren't consecutive. He was going to have to run one, then, while someone else was running, he was getting a break, but he was going to do that 4 times. And I just remember thinking, there's no way, and then here we are, fast forward to today, where we're like, oh, that's a short run for us. 4 5Ks straight, 20K. That's no big deal for us.
No question.
I think with that, some of it is once we push past the barrier that we had. So like running 10 miles the first time, well, it's unknown, but like we were just talking about our 15-mile run. Well, now we're backing off 5 miles. So it's like, okay, I mean, just the 10-mile run yesterday, that the week before we ran 15. So it really is just 10 miles when it's 2/3 of what we did the week before. And I think that's what will really determine what just a 10-mile run or just whatever it is, whatever the number is, how many times we go past a number.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like once you go over 15, once we run an 18, a 20, and a 26-mile run, is 15 just going to be, well, I mean, we've already ran 26. What's 15 miles this week or whatever?
It's 11 miles less. Yeah, I think about you not just pulling back from last week to this week, but think about really the last 4 weeks. It was that, because I mean, we ran. Joe, what was the first one that we ran when you first ran the long one with us? That was what, 11, wasn't it, or was it only 10?
I think it was 10 and a
I think it was
half
10
from the
10,
rec flex.
a little over 10.
Okay. So the one after that, then we went to like 11 and a half or 12, something like that. I'd have to look at the numbers, but then we ran a half marathon, and then we ran the 15 and a half. So I mean, for 3-4 weeks, we were running more than that. So that what, because I remember telling Mandy the same exact thing like you guys said. I was telling Mandy, oh, this Saturday, what time do you leave for work? Because she coaches on Saturdays, and I'm like, oh, well, we're only running 10 miles, so I'll be back earlier this time. It's not, I won't be back as late.
Right.
So it's crazy. So what are you thinking, Joe, on your, as far as weekly miles? You didn't really touch on what do you think your weekly miles will get to be no big deal for you?
Oh, I think 30.
30?
Yeah, I think so. I've been, even backing off, I've still been about 20. This week would be the shortest one for me because I didn't run today in the last month and a half, maybe. And I'm just under 20 miles. Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm lower than that even. Maybe it's 15. Yeah, I think, I mean, running 5 times a week, you're just going to get there.
Right.
Especially with some of these long runs that get a little bit lengthy. The Sunday runs are what I will be doing on Sunday before Bible class and worship get progressively longer throughout that plan, even though the other ones don't really, except for the long run. And so just those and the long runs together are going to get you up, close to 20.
Right.
Within a few weeks.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking, same number, probably 30, 35.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't quite hit those yet. For me, like Brett kind of touched on, finding the time, especially with working more, your schedule, especially this time of year, getting dark, is just some weeks it's hard to find the time to log those miles with our paces. Once our paces start getting faster, we'll be able to log those better.
Yeah, I'm afraid a lot of mine during the winter is going to be more treadmill than I desire for it to be, but at least I have that option,
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't prefer to run in the dark. It's pretty much like if I don't start at 4, like in the afternoon after getting off work, I pretty much won't get a run in that day. So it's been quite a bit of get off work, run, shower, and go back to work.
Yeah.
But luckily I work from home, so I'm able to do that.
That's good that you have that option. That's one thing we talk about on that work schedule. Maybe another time. Bro, you guys got anything else you want to touch on Joe's topic?
No, I just would like to say one more time that I think it's exciting that we can even consider that compared to where we were, again, less than a year ago. And that's probably a PSA to anybody that's considering running or a little bit afraid to start or that's struggling as they're starting is just a few months from now, whatever you're doing right now will be no big deal if you just stick with it.
Mm-hmm. Very good point. I like that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was just going to say that, especially me and Joe, like going into this, we were happy with just doing the 5K plan.
Mm-hmm.
Now here we are pushing for a marathon. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and this is within. I mean, I started at the very end of February. I think I got 1 or 2 runs in February. Here we are before the end of the year. We're talking about doing 15-mile runs and 10-mile runs and all that stuff. It's crazy how far you can come and how much like the tough runs are actually somewhat enjoyable looking back. During them,
Yeah.
they are tough, but there is something about kind of overcoming those struggles or learning from them or getting better. Because like if it was all easy, you're not getting any better at it. But when
Mm-hmm.
it's like you kind of have to push through stuff and kind of overcome stuff, you kind of find out that you can do more than you thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I got one thing I want to say. I want to brag on you, Brett. You talk about the no big deal, how you were not planning on running more than a 5K. As we've talked about in the past, that I kind of kept trying to push you guys to keep going further and further, just because I had made the decision that I wanted to and didn't want to do it alone. The more I ran, but I got to brag because if you remember, I was what we kind of talked about this. I think I was like 35 because I started in December, so my year started January 1. You guys didn't start till like late February. So when you started on our yearly miles, I was like 30 to 40, maybe 50 miles ahead of you guys on the yearly miles. And you kept inching towards me, and you're like, Dan, I'm never going to catch you. There's no way. Like, once you start the marathon plan, you're going to just take off and pull away from me because I'm not doing a marathon. And you went from inching towards me to not only catching me. I think at the when we hit the half marathon, I think we were going back and forth. I think you surpassed me for like a day, and then I had to run, and I surpassed you, and we kept going back and forth for like a week. And then the miles you've been logging, let's just say, how many miles are you going to finish the year out with, Brett? What's your goal?
At this point, if I get I think it's 33 miles, I'll get to 900 miles for the year.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy looking back, especially when like the first month it was like 40 miles, which I don't know that I could have done more than 40 miles that first month. Like I was pushing it then, and now to know that like I've done a 35-mile week
Mm-hmm.
is kind of crazy to think about.
That brings me to my bragging point of you, right? You're going to hit 900 miles. Looking at my numbers, I will be, if I hit my 100-mile month this month, I'll break, I don't know by how much, not a lot, but I'll break 800. Okay. So think about that. You went from 40 to 50 miles behind me to you're going to finish the year out with over 100 miles more than me in 2 less months, right? So
Awesome.
it's great, man, and it's encouraging because I love it. I love to see how you came from not wanting to do more than a 5K, or okay, I'll do the 10K. Was it the 10K or the half that you didn't even start the plan with us? I think it was the 10K, wasn't it?
No, it was the half. The 10K
Yeah,
I started the plan
it was the half.
because
Okay,
yeah, because it didn't
and
even. I mean, one, it was Nike doesn't have it built into the app anymore.
that's
So
right.
like
That's right. Because you're the one
we
who put it all together for us.
yeah, so I looked it all up in because they have the PDF that you can look at that gives you all the run names and stuff and all that. So we did that because that was just another 8-week program. But I remember being miserable on during the 10K plan for the long runs, and that was because I was running, as I guess nice way to put it, not wisely, not smart, maybe is the better phrase. I was not running in a smart manner to actually sustain anything. It was like if this is what long runs are going to be like and running's going to be like, I don't know if I can keep this up. But as we've talked about in past episodes, we've gotten a lot smarter about how we run. We're just not going all out, and
Yeah.
we're giving each run its purpose. So that's helped a lot. And one of the things that I know you guys have, between injuries and life getting in the way, missed some runs. It's one of those things where it's like there's some days where it's like I don't want to run. Like this morning, Sunday mornings are one of the tough days to run, where it's like you just come off the long run. It's like, oh man, the bed feels so nice. I could just keep laying in there. And it's like I could run some other time today, but just kind of how busy Sundays are with kind of keeping our priorities straight and making sure we're worshiping God and putting our focus there. It's like, oh, kind of turns out that there isn't that much time to run otherwise.
Mm.
A lot of times I'm like, if we skip today, Brett, are we going to skip the next day? And then are we going to skip the day after that? What's going to stop us if we say no once? How are we going to say not stop saying no? So that usually gets me out of bed and stuff.
That's good.
I know it keeps Dan in bed, but
It does.
that's why he's 100 miles behind.
That is part of it. Sundays are really hard because I haven't been getting to bed as early. Getting up in the morning, I'm usually the one to get Levi up because I'm not really home all week to get him up. So Saturday and Sunday are my mornings. And so if I can't get out the door, by like 7 to get at least a half hour, I usually try to get him up by 7:30, start getting him breakfast and stuff. Just need to be more disciplined with my sleep, getting to bed earlier. Brett, we will move on to your topic. I see you got update on 2024 goals. You want to kind of touch on that?
Yep. So when our first episode, we talked about kind of what our goals are going forward. And with a couple months past now since we have done the first episode, or at least several weeks, and we've got some more runs in, just want to touch base on where we're currently at. So what our personal bests are so far, not that we've pushed for them lately, but saying what they are and what we want them to be when we come around this time next year. And we're doing our last episode of 2024. So for me right now, my mile time is 8:12. I would like to get under 7:30 by the end of next year. I think that's very gettable. I don't think that 8:12 is my best. I ran one right after the half marathon that we did at the end of September, but I had a cough that week. So I'm literally hacking while I'm trying to run all out, which isn't ideal. So I think I could have gotten under 8 that time if I wasn't trying to cough the whole time. My 5K, we talked about it last episode, but Thanksgiving, I ran a 5K that morning. I got 28:28. My goal was before that to break 29 in 2024. So obviously I had to change that. I would like to break 27 minutes now. We'll be a little bit under, we'll be right around 8:40 pace. And then for 10K, my current personal best is 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 23 seconds. I did that just before the end of the half marathon plan. I'd like to get that to 59 minutes by the end of the year. And then for half marathon, I'm currently at 2:25:14 is my personal best. I want to get that down to 2:10 still. I think that would be a good number to hit. If you have yours ready, we'll go ahead and pass it over to you.
I'm hesitant to do some of these because every time I set a goal and then we start a new training plan, I meet the goal like halfway through it because the goals are a little bit too gentle, maybe, but maybe that's the way to do it. I don't know. I was a little bit more aggressive with what I was thinking for next year, so we'll see. The first one is not time related, but it's to do every single run of the marathon training plan because I don't think I missed a run in any of the other plans. So even if I have to limp through them or slow down or modify them, just to at least check them off. Okay, so if you go back to longest run right now is 2 hours 57 minutes. I'd like to see that get up continuous run over 3.5 for marathon level. I guess would be obvious, but we are planning on doing some walk breaks during that. If you look at mile, my best mile was in June. It was 7:06. I'd like to get down under 6:30. Fastest 5K was also June. It was 26:33. I'd like to get that under 24. Fastest 10K was 55:56. I'd like to get that into the 40s. And then fastest half was the half that we did, and it was 2:05:32. I'd like to get that under 150, and then I would like to complete the marathon.
What was that on the half that you said? I'm sorry.
My current half is 2:05. I'd like to get it under 150, so in the 140s.
Under 150. Yeah. My current numbers, fastest mile, 6:45. Fastest 5K, 26:04. 10K, 54:54. And the half is the same one that me and you ran, 2 hours, 5 minutes, and 34 seconds. I would like to get that same thing, probably under 150, 145. That'd be great. 10K, I'd say 45 to 50 minutes if I could get that. I don't really know. I have the pace chart in front of me, so I don't know what that would be. 5K, I'd like to get in the lower 20s. I don't know. I think I'll be able to get to 20 minutes, but get at least below 25, get to the 23 to 24 range maybe. And for a mile, I'd like to, if I could, get that to the low 6. I don't know how feasible that is. I mean, it'd be great to break 6 minutes, but yeah, that's where I'm at as far as 2024 goals.
Yeah, one of the things I've thought about with this is with the mile especially, I feel like that's going to be one of the harder ones to cut down on just because there's less time to do it or less distance to do it. But also with our training, we've gotten to longer and longer distances. So we're just not as much training that short distance of speed.
Right.
We're focusing on running more miles at a still quick pace, but it's not focusing on that top end speed.
Well, yeah, and we're going from 2 speed runs a week to 1, I believe, throughout the whole marathon plan, isn't it?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
All right. Well, then we will move on to my topic, which, like we said at the beginning, is not running while beautiful. Brett. It is running in cold or rainy weather. The reason I thought about this topic is after I run yesterday, we've had in the past where sometimes when you look outside and you see it's raining, it's easy to be like, I'll run later or I'll wait till it quits raining. And I think back to, I think we were in the 10K plan. I was supposed to get my long run in. We do our long runs on Saturdays, but I didn't get my long run in. I think it was the first 7-mile run we did. And I was like, I'll just do it Sunday morning. And as you kind of touched on before, Joe, with your goals of the marathon plan, that you don't want to miss any of the runs, that's what I had my mindset on. I didn't want to miss any of the runs. And we were about to start a new week. I was like, if I don't do it today, I know I'm not going to make this 7-mile run up. And I just remember opening the garage to walk out the door, and it was pouring down rain. And I was like, oh, no. In my mind, I'm like, oh, great. But then I looked at the weather. I saw it wasn't going to be, raining for too long. And I just came back inside and grabbed a towel, and I went and I parked where I was, ran where I planned on running. But I was a little nervous because, the main thing I was worried about was thunder and lightning. I got pretty rained on that day. So the other day when we ran, as you guys know, we all got kind of soaking wet with the rain. It was just drizzling a little bit, but then it started to come down on us a little more. And I thought about the good that comes out of that, right? Is we're not using that as an excuse to not run. Like I said, if it was thunder and lightning or a major storm, obviously we're not going to be out there running, but just a little water getting us, a little uncomfortable. We've talked about in the past that, that's what's going to help us grow, is going through those tough situations, those tough runs. And I thought about it yesterday, and I was like, we sign up for the marathon, we sign up for the half marathon. When we get to that date, we're not going to want to, we're going to want to run that, we talked about, if we were to get sick or come down with a little cold or something, hey, I'm still going to try to do the best I can. I'm still going to try to run it. And so I thought about, if we get to May 4th for our marathon and it's a little rainy out, those type of runs like we just ran yesterday are going to prepare us for if that pops up. It's not going to be brand new to us. If we get rained on a little bit during the marathons, it can be uncomfortable. Is it going to be, I don't know how your feet are, Joe. I know you were worried about getting blisters. When we push through and do those type of runs, I think that's going to totally help us in the long run when we get to a day, because when you sign up for a marathon, you don't just change the day. You don't pick the day based off of the weather. You get to that day and you're either running it or you're not. So I don't know what you guys spots. Joe, if you want to go next.
I think those are all valid points. I think we've talked before while we've been running or discussing running that it's very much akin to what James says in James 1:2. Be grateful when you fall in various trials, because the testing of your faith produces patience. Every time that you have to overcome a small challenge in any context prepares you to overcome a little bit bigger challenge later. With this stuff, for sure. I would say one of the things to running in the cold, I kind of fell victim to what we were talking about before with it's no big deal now, where after we ran and it was, I don't remember what it was in the 20s and it was miserable. And we thought Brett might have died with the hypothermia. But after that one, the next run was in the 30s or maybe the low 40s. And because it wasn't in the 20s, I had that mindset of no big deal. And I didn't wear a hat and gloves and regretted it. And so I think moving forward, running in the cold, running in the wet rain, whatever it is, I think don't take it for granted. Go ahead and act like a big kid. Take care of yourself the appropriate way so that it's not miserable. Because even though it's raining, it doesn't mean you have to be miserable doing it.
Right.
And like you said, if it's really bad or if it's dangerous, it's also okay not to.
I think that's kind of what I thought of, is like, obviously we don't want to do something if it's dangerous. If it's thunder and lightning, or if there's hailstorm or whatever, we don't want to be out there, messing around. You push that run off, or you got the option of, like you said, like running on a treadmill. But good stuff, man. Brett, how about you?
Yeah, one of the things where it's like, oh man, kind of come up with a lot of excuses why not to run and stuff. Definitely rain's one of them. But like the rain we had on Saturday really wasn't that bad. It was a light drizzle to start, and it got a little heavier, but it was never like downpouring or anything, or like so much rain where it was like, okay, like this is just kind of insane that we're doing this. And it was cold, but it wasn't to the point where it was like, oh no, like I'm going to be soaking wet and freezing cold. So it was just warm enough where it was like, okay, like I'm just going to get wet. And especially for me, it's like, well, we're just changing the process of how I'm going to get soaking wet today. instead of sweat today, it is rain. It's really just I'm getting wet from the outside instead of the inside this time. So like what's the big difference? And you guys have both touched on it, but we're not talking about running through a thunderstorm or anything. Like if the weather's not safe, don't run. There is nothing that you're going to get done in one run that's going to make that big of a difference. We've all talked about it. We're running for long-term health, not because we wanted to get whatever distance running on Saturday or a weekday or something. Like if the weather says you can't run, that's fine. Make what's best. If you can switch your days around, run on a different day. Or if you can't, like you missed one run, it doesn't really matter. Like it's not the end all be all. Like if it's too cold to run, it's too cold to run. Getting sick because you ran in 15-degree weather while it was snowing is like, oh, you're gonna feel silly missing 3 runs because you got sick. Yep. Because you had to get that one run in. Being smart about it, and like we really didn't have to worry about it because we were running on a trail. But like if you're running in the rain, know that cars can't see you as well, even if it's just your neighborhood streets. Wear reflective stuff. Be prepared for what you're running in, no matter what the climate is. Like Joe talked about his hat and gloves. Be ready for whatever weather you're running in. And if it's rain, have other shoes or socks or something to get out of your wet clothes right after. Bring a towel to sit in your car so your wife doesn't have to sit in that same seat later, which is a rule for me every week just because of how much I sweat regardless of the weather.
Yeah, but that's even going to the grocery store.
I think you made a great point there, Brett, in that, if you're running in weather, and same in the dark too, like at night, is be aware that people on the road, people driving, are not going to notice you as easily. I mean, you got people distracted driving all the time that might not even see you in the daytime, in broad daylight. So with the weather like that, one thing I thought of, wear your reflective stuff, like you touched on, those headlamps we got, those, they got that setting with the flashing red light. You could use that. But the big thing too, I think of, is be aware of that, and you be aware of your surroundings as you're running. Be on alert of cars coming, or because sometimes when we're running, we tend to just kind of lock in and zone in. So if you're running in those type of conditions, I think it's important to be alert and to be aware of your surroundings also.
Yeah, definitely, especially when the weather's less than optimal. What a car's stopping distance is on a perfect weather day is not the same as a rainy day.
Mm-hmm.
And different things. And it's like we've talked about it before, but if you're running somewhere that doesn't have a sidewalk, and like I run through the neighborhood and there's not a sidewalk, I always run on the left side of the street. That way I see the cars coming at me and I can step off into someone's yard, get out of the way, trying to make it as safe as possible. Like I could run around on like some of the roads around here, and there's quite a bit of shoulder, like plenty of room to run where you could still be 10 plus feet away from a car. But speed limit's 55 on that road. It doesn't take much, and I wouldn't have time to get out of the way. And it's like, oh, that could change up the run, but is it really worth running out on there to get a different type of run in if it just takes one person to have distracted moment or swerve to not hit a squirrel or whatever it is? Well, wherever you're running, whether it's raining, dry, snowing, cold, hot, be prepared for what run you're getting into. And that's not to discourage you from running. It's just know what you're getting into. If it's hot, make sure you have liquids readily available either right after, or if it's a long run, during. Don't try to run 20 miles and it's 100 degrees outside and have no plan to refuel, or even 5 miles, 10 miles. It's any of those distances. I mean, it's cold outside and we're still refueling while we're doing it.
Yeah.
Just know what you're getting into with each run and make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Oh, we're still sweating a lot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Joe talked about the one run that was below freezing, why it was like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Like, if it was any colder, it could be potentially dangerous. Is like I was sweating, and then like I was sweating so much that I was getting like overcooled down because it was so cold outside.
Yeah.
So I was wet, and then my body heat wasn't keeping up with me being cooled down by the sweat plus the cool air. So that was one where it was like, hey, if it's below 30, keep it a short run. That way we're not in the elements too long and we can get time on a bike or whatever. Like, especially right now, we've all signed up for the marathon in Cape in May. That's over 4 months away. There's no run that I'm going to do right now that's going to guarantee anything for that. Like I can get incrementally better right now, but I can do more damage now by not being smart than I can do good to help myself then. And that's something to remember, just to stay smart when you're running, know what you're running for. Don't let one run get you caught up in anything, and just stay safe.
I think one of the things you pointed out when you said have clothes readily available to change into, some dry clothes, dry and warm clothes. I experienced that when we ran at that school out in Wildwood, the trail. I forget the name of the trail that you took us on. Me and you ran it, and then we ran it with Joe. It wasn't rainy or anything. Like we said, we still sweat, and we got back in the car. Joe dropped me off at my car, and I just remember getting out of Joe's car to get to my car, and it's literally like 3 steps to get to the car. And I remember the second I stepped out of the car, I was just freezing, and I realized, man, my clothes are wet, and this cold air just hit me, and I was literally shivering until I could get the car heated up. And so that's when I really realized, man, that's 100% true. Like, you need to have dry clothes available if you're going to be in the elements for very long after a run like that. Once you stop running and your body temperature cools off, right, you got all that wet stuff on, you're going to get cold real fast. Joe, did you experience that at all that day?
I can't remember the specific ones necessarily as well as you guys do. There haven't been too many where I've been really cold after the fact, or the wet clothes have become a problem. The other day was pretty uncomfortable because we were 30 minutes away from the house after the wet run, after the rainy run. And so I was wearing all cotton sweatshirt and a cotton pair of joggers. So I was pretty wet from the rain on the way back, but we were in the car, so it didn't matter. The only time that I would say it's ever been a problem is when I had to go to Noah's martial arts testing right after the run and didn't have a chance to change. and I was damp there, it wasn't a problem because of the coldness. It was a problem because of me putting my damp, disgusting odor near other humans.
Yeah, that's a little different than being cold. Like I said, I didn't get that every time, but it was just that one time for some reason. I guess it was how cold it was outside, and I'm used to being in my car and driving straight home, getting home, and just I'm walking from the house or from the car to the house real quick. So that's my time being exposed to it. But that day we had rode together. We met at Weldon Springs, parked the car. You drove us out there, and then you dropped me back off at my car. So my car was sitting there, so it wasn't warmed up, And we got in your car. We were warm. We were fine because we had the heat on. But then when I got out, it was like the cold air hit me because, like, not only was I in your warm car, my clothes were wet. And then when that cold air hit me, it was just even more of a shock. So like Brett pointed out, the importance of having dry clothes to get into after. I think Coach Bennett even kind of mentioned that in his rainy day run, the guided run on Nike.
One quick thing to add to that is, like, running in the different elements, it does give you a different perspective and a different experience on stuff. I know we took it a little slower just because you're having to dodge puddles and stuff. Kind of just adds to kind of your own knowledge base and kind of lets you be more okay with different things happening during a run. I feel like in the perfect conditions, you're expecting it to go perfectly. Runs are more like a rainy day run. Things don't always go as planned. Sometimes when you're 4 miles away from being done, your friend keeps running and he knows we say, hey, that looks like a river running across the path, but he keeps going in.
Oh, you beat me to it.
But it just adds a different experience and kind of just makes it kind of less serious. And not that you're like, oh, it doesn't matter what our time is, but it's like, hey, everything's not always going to be 50 degrees, partly cloudy and no wind, like perfect running conditions to run a longer distance. Like sometimes it is going to be not ideal, and kind of learning like, hey, it can still be fun and you can still get something out of it. The time on your watch doesn't really matter that much.
Well, like we've said, it's kind of an excuse for us to get a little bit healthier, but spend time together and hang out. It's opportunity for us when we probably wouldn't be just getting together, us three, once a week outside of Bible class or worship time, just to hang out and chit chat, and to be with people that you care about and that you love just makes it fun. And the same reason we're doing this podcast. I mean, we're not quite viral, but we do have 50 views on our short. So we're getting real close. So obviously the reason we're doing the podcast is just to hang out and to be together because it's fun. And like you said, nobody's interested in sponsoring us. The time truly doesn't matter. If we run 11:05 or if we run 10:22 on our mile paces, the world just keeps spinning.
Well, and going back to what you guys touched on with the main goal that we've had this whole time is like increasing our overall health. We all got young families that we've realized that we were practicing some very unhealthy habits, letting our weight get out of control, letting our diet get out of control, not actually, and it's just one of those things that we realize and we are like, hey, we need to make a change because we want to be around longer. You guys have both touched on that, right? I think all three of us have. That was one of the big reasons. It was like we want to be healthier so that we can be around longer for our kids. Not that we fear death or anything. Our faith is in God and that we don't have to worry about or fear death, but more fear for the people that you leave behind and wanting to be here longer for them and better prepare them for when you are gone.
Yeah, and whatever time you have, you want it to be functional time too. Like you want to be able to go out and do things with the kids or, go on a hike and see some of God's creation or.
Absolutely. I think about that with Parker's baseball. I'm looking at it going, man, I don't want to get to where like my dad was, where he had triple bypass it in his mid 40s. Like he did a lot worse stuff than what I was doing, but still, if something like that, if I push my body or just destroy my body to that point, I'm not going to be able to go out there and play catch with them or go out there and practice baseball with them. I'll be the one barely making it to the bleachers to sit down and watch them play. I ain't going to be able to get out there and help out, help coach the team, help, get out there and run around with. Yeah. Like you said, the times that we've got to spend together is more important. What does it matter if it takes us a little bit longer to finish the run or to do the run?
Talking about the rainy day run there that we had yesterday, I'm not going to remember what paces we ran in a couple months' time. I will remember Joe running through the water. Like,
exactly.
I'll remember like doing that run together and just kind of remember it being fun. Like those are the things we'll remember. Like if we keep up our running together, like those are the things we'll remember in 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. We're not going to remember like, oh man, we started off at 10:30 pace for that run and we backed off to 11:30. We're not going to care about that. It's going to be the memories and the fun we've had together. Hopefully the pattern we set for our kids. I mean, we talk about it from a religious perspective of setting that pattern for them and for how they should have a relationship with God and how they should be worshiping and acting in this world. But part of that is taking care of ourselves and hopefully setting our kids that example of how they should be taking care of their bodies. God has given us this life. Doesn't mean we should take it for granted.
I like what you said there. We're not going to remember our paces, but we're going to remember the memories that we have. I mean, me and Joe were just talking about our Alton run on our way home the other day. Like, we didn't remember what pace we hit. We remember the stuff we went through and the fun we had on that run and what we got to see, the time we got to spend together.
We remembered almost stepping on the dead animal carcass.
Yeah, almost stepping into a dead animal carcass and luckily seeing it, and having to spring off our other foot before we placed our foot in it. We remember those things. We remember the time, like you said, the time and the fun that we get to spend together.
A year from now, and unless there was something memorable about the run, are we going to remember like, oh, hey, October 12th, I ran 10 miles and I did it at 10:45 pace? No, because I've done that before. It's not my fastest. It's not my slowest. Will I remember being scared that I saw a mountain lion on the trail? Yes, I will always remember that.
And I think about you with the marathon. You almost didn't sign up for the marathon because you were concerned that me and Joe, you didn't want to run it by yourself. I had made the count like, hey, we'll just all run it together. Like, your pace is up there with ours anyways now, but you didn't want to run 5 hours by yourself or however long it's going to take us. I didn't want to speak for Joe, but I knew, I was like, hey, we'll talk to Joe to make sure. But I'm pretty sure Joe will be okay with it too. Like, if we just all run together, like, the goal is to finish it and just enjoy the moment together, enjoy the time together. I don't think I'm pretty sure that was Joe's reaction when we talked to him was, yeah, no, absolutely. Let's do it.
Yeah, of course.
Going into like the half marathon, and my paces are still a little bit slower than you guys, but closing in, I did choose to run the half marathon on my own and not doing it as part of the Belleville one that you guys ran. How long it was to run by yourself, where it's like, and some of that was like, oh, I want you guys to be able to get the best paces you guys can get and see what you guys can do. And if you guys are always having to slow down for me, like, I didn't want to do that, but it's definitely a lot better running with somebody. It makes the time go by faster and it makes those tough parts of the run so much easier.
Unless you're talking about pizza and cookies while you're going.
So gross. So gross. At that moment, I wish I was alone.
We'll say that story for a different one. But yeah, you're right. You're right. I think back to the half marathon when I hit that wall. Like, how many times have we all said it? Like, if we weren't running together, we would have walked so many times, or stopped so many times, or cut the run short so many times. So it's definitely better doing it together. Got anything else you want to point out? Or you want to move on to our shares? 10 minutes? Let's go on to our shares then. Joe, if you want to share yours first.
Yeah, no problem, buddy. I'm sharing the Muddy River Marathon. The race that we have actually signed up for is in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. As of right now, there are about 80 spots left, 85 spots left, it looks like. We're recording this on December 17th. That's it. They have a half marathon. They also have a half relay and a dog walk. We would like to invite both of our listeners out to come and watch us at the marathon. The link to the Muddy River Marathon will be in the description. You can come and see us off and then go out to breakfast, watch a couple movies, and come back after lunch and watch us finish.
Or if you want to sponsor us, we are accepting sponsorship.
We are taking full pizza bath bombs, deep dish pizzas. to drop into a bathtub afterwards.
Oh, all right. All right, Brett.
For this episode, I put the Mark Lewis YouTube page. He's a older British guy. He's not that old. I think he's around. Got a YouTube page about running and fitness in general. He's done a few different challenges, other exercises and stuff, and I feel like he kind of gives a good perspective for somebody that's not a like world class level athlete. And that's not to say he's not a good athlete. I know he's run sub 20 on his 5K and stuff, and I think he's even done sub 40 on his 10K. So like he's no slow guy. I feel like he gives a good perspective of somebody that lived the office life and kind of got himself in shape. And I do enjoy his perspective on things. He kind of shoots straight quite often and kind of in a humorous way, at least kind of humor I like. It's enjoyable. He has different content that's out there and different like exercises that he does and different challenges he's done. Does a good job of sharing his experiences and pretty much helping you learn through what he's done in a way that isn't like, well, okay, yeah, you run 13-minute 5Ks. Like that's very relatable to me who just for the first time since college got under 30. So there's definitely stuff I can learn, but I'm not running consecutive 4-minute miles. So
Yeah, but I think I've seen him before. I might have to check him out some more.
He's one of my favorite fitness YouTubers or running YouTubers. He's really good. And like Brett said, he's down to earth, but he has a little bit of levity in it. He doesn't take himself too seriously, but he's professional. He does a really great job.
My share this week, I'm going to share, you can get it from, the link that we're going to have is for Amazon. You can get them at the store. You can get them at Walmart, whatever. But it's Moleskin. I had never heard of this until Joe, you shared this with me. Last week on our 15.5-mile run, I got my very first ever blister on the back of my heel right at the end of the run. Pretty nasty one. A bunch of skin came off my heel. And I remember thinking, oh, great, this is going to really not be fun running the next week or so. I didn't run Sunday morning, but I was talking to you at Bible class, I think, after Bible class. And I showed it to you. And you told me what you learned in, was it Boy Scouts?
Yeah, it was Boy Scouts.
Or Eagle Scouts? Yeah, that moleskin. So what moleskin padding is it's like a thick pad, like adhesive pad. It's sold in like the medical section, like where all the foot stuff is. Joe, you explained to me to use 2 strips, cut a hole in the one about the size of the blister and put it over it, and then put another layer over top so that there's nothing actually touching the blister.
Yep.
And it gives it time to heal, and it feels like it's not even there. And when you first said that, I'm like, okay, feel like it's not there. There's no way. But it was no joke. I was able to put this on my heel the way Joe explained it. I did put a little gauze pad with some, ointment on there to kind of help heal it up. But when I had it on, like all day at work, didn't feel it. I mean, every once in a while, if running on it, I didn't even notice it. There was one run where when I did my speed run, where it's from wearing it all day at work, it started to peel up. But then, like you said, to use athletic tape to kind of tape around it afterwards if I'm going to be on it for a long period of time. But I could not tell at all that I had a blister on my foot and I was able to run. So that is what I would recommend. I'm shocked at how much it's healed just in less than a week. But at the time before we went to our long run, when I was padding it up yesterday morning for our long run, I'm looking at it going, man, I can't believe how much it's healed already. So yeah, I would highly recommend that.
All these things, we'll put the link in the description below so you guys can check them out on your own. Once again, want to give a reminder to check out our other social medias, 0 to 0 Pod on X, Facebook, and Instagram. Please go over and follow those pages. We're still working on getting more pictures of Dan out there. They will come.
Stop. So is the new name staying?
The Big, the Bald, and the Beautiful?
Big, the Bald, and the Beautiful.
I don't know how we could be anything else. Shout out to
Emphasis on the beautiful.
Shout out to Miss Kara.
Dan, you did it. You were nervous about it, and you did it.
I was nervous.
You hosted
I appreciate
a podcast.
you guys.